it's Jennifer from Flux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet this cute donut scrubby. These are really easy to make and they're both handy for the bath and the kitchen as well. It's made in 2 parts and then we're going to put it all together at the end. For this project, you'll need a 5.5 millimeter eye crochet hook. You'll need a tapestry needle, a pair of scissors, and your yarn. I'm going to be using a yarn called Cotton Scrubby from Red Heart. This is a new yarn that's from Red Heart, and I did a Yarn 101 on this a couple of days ago, so if you want to learn a little bit more and see all the colors that it comes in, you can check out my Yarn 101 video on that as well. So I've made a pink frosted donut and a blue frosted donut. We're going to make a yellow frosted donut together. The color that I used for the bottom part of the donut for each one is called Tan. The pink frosting is done in a color called Tulip Pink. The blue frosted donut is a color called Caribbean. And then this yellow is called Lemony. So you'll need a couple of different colors, and I've used, for example, the pink one I've used blue and yellow for the sprinkles. For the blue one I used pink and yellow for the sprinkles. So we're going to make a yellow one together, so I'll be using pink and blue for the sprinkles on that donut. So let's get started. We're going to start with the bottom part of our donut first, and then we'll add the frosting part later. So what we want to do is put a slip knot on our hook. Wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up the loop, and tighten. Next, we're going to chain 10, and that's going to create the opening in our donut. So to make a chain, wrap yarn around hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Next, what we're going to do is join to create the ring. So insert the hook into the chain farthest from the hook, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the loop. Now bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook. And this will be our donut opening. We have a tail here. We're going to hold that along the edge as we work our first round. So for round 1 of the donut bottom, what we're going to do is chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we're going to work 32 treble crochets into the center of the ring. So to make a treble crochet, wrap yarn around hook 2 times, 1 and 2. Insert the hook into the center of the ring, bring up a loop. You'll have 4 loops on your hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the next 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops on your hook. Okay, the treble crochet. And then see how we have this big gap? You might need to slide things over a bit as you work because we're going to be putting a lot of stitches into the center of the ring. Okay, so go ahead and do 32 treble crochets. Let's do a few more together. So wrap yarn around hook 2 times, insert it into the center of the ring, bring up a loop, yarn around hook, bring through the first 2 loops, yarn around hook, bring through the next 2 loops, yarn around hook, bring through the last 2 loops, and then slide things over as needed. Let's do one more. 4 loops on the hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, bring it through the next 2 loops, bring it through the last 2 loops. I'm going to go ahead and make my 32 treble crochets around the center of this ring, and then we'll rejoin in just a moment and move on to round 2. Okay, I'm just working that last treble crochet into the center of the ring. Then we're going to join to close with a slip stitch. So that starting chain we did at the beginning of this round, remember that was 4 chains tall, you're going to count 4 chains up. Now if you're having trouble seeing, you might need to feel a little bit, but as long as you're in that topmost chain. So insert your hook into that topmost chain, that 4th chain up, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook, and round 1 is complete. Okay, so for round 2, we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in this first space, we're going to be working into the spaces. It makes it a little bit easier when you're using textured yarn like this, instead of trying to locate those little stitches at the top. So in that first space, the area in between the posts of the treble crochets, they're pretty easy to see. They're just the holes in between. we're going to work 1 treble crochet into that first space that we come to. And then in the next space, we're going to work 2 treble crochets into the same space. So 2 treble crochets into the next space. So that's 1, whoops, let me just bring that through, and 2, just like that, okay? In the next space, we're going to just work 1 treble crochet this time. Just bring it through the best you can. There we go. And in the next space, we're going to work 2 treble crochets. So we're going to continue this sequence all the way around. Work 1 in the next space, then 2 in the next space, all the way around. Okay, so we just worked 2 in this space here. So our next space, we're going to work 1. So you'll just go all the way around, alternating like that until you get to the end of the round. Okay, so we worked 1 in that space, so the next space we'll work 2. Now with this textured yarn, it helps to try and work loosely if possible with your hook and your yarn, and also take your time. Okay, so I'm going to keep going all the way around, working 1 treble crochet in the next space, and then 2 treble crochets in the space after that, all the way around. And then once we get towards the end of this round, I'm going to show you how to finish this off and then add this little hanging loop at the top as well. All right, I'm just putting that last treble crochet of the round. And then what we're going to do is close the round with a slip stitch, the same thing we did before in that topmost chain, the 4th chain up. Insert your hook, yarn around hook, bring that through the loop, bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook. So the bottom part of the donut is done. Now if you want to add a hanging loop, you can follow along with me. If you want to just leave your donut plain like this, you can just cut the yarn at this point and fasten off. But to do the hanging loop, what we're going to do, let me just grab a little yarn, is chain 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now we're going to take our hook back down to the bottom of that same stitch. You'll see kind of a hole at the bottom where that stitch is, and insert your hook into that stitch, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. So at the base of that chain, we just worked a slip stitch to kind of rejoin the chain back onto the donut. So we now have a hanging loop. Okay, so then what you want to do is grab your scissors and cut the yarn, and then go ahead and fasten off, and then pull it tight. You can kind of straighten out your hanging loop a little bit. Flip it over to the back, grab your tapestry needle, thread the tapestry needle, just go in one direction here, and then come back in the other direction. You might need to kind of shimmy it through because of the texture. So just go nice and slow. See how I'm doing like a twirling motion almost? That helps get those fibers through a little bit easier. Okay, and then we're going to just trim that yarn as well. So the bottom part of our donut is complete. So you can just kind of straighten things out a little bit. All those stitches that we put in there. Next, we're going to work the icing part, the top icing part of our donut. So we have the bottom part, and we can kind of set that aside for now, because we're going to work the icing part and then we'll later seam it on, okay? So I'm going to do yellow icing because we already have a blue and a pink. So grab your yellow or whatever color you want to make for your frosting. White looks very nice. You could do chocolate frosting, whatever you like. And then for the icing, we're going to once again put a slip knot on our hook. I guess this will be kind of a lemon frosted donut. And then we're going to chain 12. So 1, 2, 3, whoops, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Then we're going to do the same thing we did before. This is basically very similar to the bottom. We're just going to be working a little bit different of a stitch. So in this chain farthest from our hook, we're going to insert the hook into that chain, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the chain, and the other loop, okay? So what we're going to do is hold this tail once again along the edge as we work, and then this time we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to work into the center of the ring. We're going to work 32 double crochets this time instead of treble crochets. That will make our circle just slightly smaller. So to make a double crochet, wrap yarn around hook, insert the hook into the center of the ring, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the next 2 loops. The double crochet stitch. Let me get a little bit more yarn here. There we go. And again, we're going to work 32 double crochets into the center of this ring. I didn't mention this before, but if you prefer the magic ring to get you started on these projects in the round, please feel free to do that as well. So we're just going to work 32 double crochets into the center of the ring. Once again, I'm holding that tail along the edge. That will save you a step at the end. You're just going to go all the way around working those double crochets. Just take your time with the texture. Texture is very grippy, and when you bring it through loops, sometimes it catches a little. So just take your time. Try to keep your hands nice and loose as you work to kind of make up for that texture a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to continue working my double crochets around the ring. And then once we're towards the end of this round, round 1 of the icing, we will rejoin and I will show you how to get started on round 2, and then we'll be able to finish up our donut, okay? And if you need to push these stitches over a little bit to give yourself some more space, you don't want it to be loose and holey looking like this. You want it to be nice and dense looking because it's a solid piece of frosting that's going to go on top, okay? So continue working your double crochets, a total of 32, and then we'll move on to round 2. Okay, so I'm just working that last double crochet in the center, and then we're going to count 3 chains up. 1, 2, 3. If they're hard to see, just feel for them with your hand a little bit because of the texture. Insert the hook into the 3rd chain up, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. And our top layer, round 1, is finished. So let's move on to round 2, the last round of our icing. So what we're going to do for this round is chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And in that first space, we'll work a double crochet. This is the same thing we did for the bottom layer with the treble crochets, except we're doing the double crochet this time. So work a double crochet into that first space, then 2 double crochet into the next space. So that's 1 and 2. Then work a double crochet into the next space, 2 double crochet into the next space, and so forth. So we're just going to do 2 double crochet, then 1 double crochet, then 2 double crochet. And again, we're working into the spaces, not the stitches of this round as well. Okay, so go ahead and work that sequence all the way around, and then we'll rejoin towards the end of this round, and we're going to put our donut together. Okay, so I worked my stitches all the way around, and now we're ready to join to close the round. So once again, count 3 chains up, insert the hook into that topmost chain, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. And now we're done the icing part of our donut, or the frosting, whatever you like to call it. Now we can cut the yarn and go ahead and fasten off. The next part of our tutorial is going to be all of the fun little sprinkles on top. So take your tapestry needle. We're going to take care of these ends first. Flip it over to the back, thread it with your yarn, Go in one direction. And then come back in the other direction with that tail. And then once again, just trim that. And then remember that tail we held along the edge. If you still have that remaining, go ahead and give that a snip too. If the center circle is buckling a little bit, you might need to straighten it out before you trim the tail. So let's move on to the sprinkles part next. Before we attach the frosting part onto the bottom, I wanted to grab these other two to show you. I used the opposite colors for the sprinkles. So for our yellow donut here, we're going to use a combination of blue and pink sprinkles. So let me grab those two and our tapestry needle. And we can put this bottom part aside for just a moment. So what you want to do is grab a piece of yarn about 18 inches long, 12 to 18 inches or so. Thread your tapestry needle, and then we're just going to do some random sprinkles. We're going to make it look like they were actually sprinkled on. So you don't want them all to go in the same direction. Just kind of randomly place your stitches all around. So we're going to just do a simple running stitch, but not in a straight line like traditionally running stitches look. We'll just kind of go all the way around. So come up from the bottom and bring it almost all the way through so that you have a little tail, and that's what we use to tie it at the end when we make a full circle with our sprinkles. And then each one of our sprinkles is roughly a 1/2 inch wide. We don't have to measure, just, you know, give or take. So just go back down into the yarn, and then we have our first sprinkle. Don't pull it too tight because it'll pull it through. And then we'll make the next one go in a different direction. We want this to kind of look as random and as festive as possible. So just make sure they're in all different directions and the stitches are not too tight. So let's make this one go straight across. And you want to make some more of the edges, some closer in. We're just going to go all the way around our donut. We don't want them to look too perfect in this instance because they're supposed to look like scattered sprinkles all over it. Okay? So we're just going all the way around, and as you can see, this goes pretty quick. We're just making these little stitches all the way around. Let's put this one up here by the edge a little bit more. And then we're right back to the original sprinkles. Let's put one more in here. And then bring it back to the back and then flip it over. And then what you can do is just tie it, because this part is going to get sewn down, so you're not going to see all this stuff behind here. So just tie that, and then you can just snip it flush to the knot, so that you just don't want the tails to hang over on either side, because when you sew it, that part will show. Okay, so now we have the pink sprinkles. Let's grab our blue yarn and grab a similar length piece, about 12 to 18 inches or so. Thread your tapestry needle. And then we're just going to do the same thing with the blue yarn. Just make them look random and scattered and festive. About a 1/2 inch long or so. Give or take. You can see mine are multiple widths, and I didn't really get too fussy about the sprinkles. Okay, so they look like real sprinkles that way if we don't try to be too perfect about it. Okay, so we're just going to come all around our donut, adding sprinkles as we go until you've come full circle. Just add more. Try to keep them equal distant apart, not too many overlapping. Just all around your donut. If you're not into sewing so much, you could leave the sprinkles off and it would still look cute. Okay, we're almost to the end here, and I need one right there. There's kind of a blank spot there. Again, we're just going all the way around with our blue sprinkles. Okay, so let's look at what we have. It looks nice. Flip it over once again. You can remove your tapestry needle. And go ahead and tie that blue yarn, or whatever color sprinkles you're doing. If you have brown, you could have chocolate sprinkles. That would be really pretty also. Okay, and then just take your scissors and trim those blue pieces. We don't need to weave those in. Now we're ready to put our frosting onto our donut. So grab the bottom part and then just lay it on top. Get it positioned. You might need to tug it around a little bit until it looks the way you want it to look. And there is our donut. We can call this one the lemon one, I guess. And then grab another piece of yarn, the same color as your frosting, and I would say about 24 inches or so on this one, about the length of 2 rulers. So what we're going to do is sandwich these pieces together and try to keep them as straight as possible while you're sewing. Sometimes I leave it sit on the table just to keep it straight, okay? So come up from the bottom, and once again, we're just going to do a simple running stitch around the edge of our frosting. Pull it almost all the way through till there's about a 4-inch tail or so. Just leave a little tail in the back so you can tie it later. And then come back down and just go all around the edge. Now, I mentioned this earlier in the tutorial that this yarn is very forgiving and hides a lot. So your stitches don't have to be absolutely perfect. This is one of those projects where you can get away with your running stitch having inconsistent lengths of your stitches and things like that, because it's going to just totally disappear in all of these textured fibers. And sometimes when you pull your needle through, you might snag a little piece. In that case, you can trim it or just try to pull it a little bit. There we go. Sometimes those little fibers can get caught up. And then just come back down. So just go from back to front all the way around your frosting. I'm going to keep sewing mine on, and then we'll rejoin because we also need to tack a few stitches to the center piece here so there isn't a big gaping pocket in the middle. So go ahead and sew it all the way around, keeping it nice and straight and neat as you sew, and then we'll rejoin in just a moment and I'll show you how to do the middle part and finish our donut off. Okay, I'm putting that last little stitch. I began at the top part here, so I'm just putting that last little stitch in there. Next, we're going to just put a few stitches in the center just to hold it down, because right now we have like this open pocket happening right here. So flip it over to the back and run your tapestry needle through the brown towards the center. Okay, now we're in the right spot we need to sew the middle. So just come up from the bottom and we're just going to do the same thing to the center. You don't need too many stitches for this. We just need to carefully hold it down, but not really overdo it, okay? So just come back down, go all the way around the center of your donut, okay? So now we're back where we started, and I am going to send my needle back up. See this tail where we began around the edge? I'm going to send my needle back through here to get back to that tail so I can tie them together. So you can pull your needle out at this point. Go ahead and tie those together. Now you can cut these flush. This is the back side of the scrubby. You can cut these flush if you like, or you can weave the ends in. It's totally up to you. And our donut is complete. So you might want to straighten out the loop. Make sure there's an even edge of the donut part around the edge of your frosting. Get everything nice and neat, and our donut is complete. So now I have a set of 3 donuts, and they're very cute and so much fun. So that is how you crochet the Donut Scrubbies. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again!